power betrayal, a chilling tale of revenge. Today we're diving deep into the story of Ugolino della Gherardesca, the Cannibal Count of Pisa,
The Cannibal Count.
a man whose ambition led him to the heights of power and the depths of despair. Imagine being locked away in a tower with your family, left to starve with no hope of escape. That's the fate that awaited Ugolino, and his story has captivated and horrified people for centuries.
I mean, it's a story that has everything, right? It's got political intrigue, betrayal, violence, and then this ultimate question of did he or didn't he?
Right, and it all plays out against the backdrop of 13th century Italy, which, let's be honest, was a pretty wild time.
No, absolutely. 13th century Italy was a time of intense political turmoil.
Yeah.
You had the Guelphs and the Ghibellines factions loyal to the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor, respectively, constantly vying for power.
Vying for power constantly. So basically, imagine Game of Thrones, but with more pasta.
Pretty much. It was a world where alliances shifted, like sand and betrayal was a common tool for those seeking to advance their own interests.
And Ugolino, he was a master of navigating this treacherous landscape. He wasn't some shadowy figure lurking in the background. He rose to prominence through military skill, even founding the city of Iglesias after a key victory against the Genoese.
Iglesias, originally known as Villa di Chiesa, still stands today.
Wow.
It's a testament to Ugolino's ambition and his ability to seize opportunities. But his rise to power wasn't without its controversies.
I imagine not.
He was known to switch sides in the Gulf-Ghibelline conflict, aligning himself with whoever he believed would best serve his ambitions.
So not exactly a man known for his loyalty.
No, not really. He was a pragmatist through and through.
It seems like this constant maneuvering and thirst for power ultimately set the stage for his downfall. One event in particular really changed the trajectory of Ugolino's life, the Battle of Meloria in 1284.
Ah, yes, Meloria, a turning point in Pisan history.
This naval battle was a disaster for Pisa. They lost to Genoa, and many of their nobles, including the podesta or head magistrate, were captured.
And this is where Ugolino's actions become even more intriguing. He managed to escape capture.
Convenient.
Now, some saw this as a stroke of luck, but others whispered that it was a calculated move, a way for him to slip back into Pisa and seize power while the city was reeling from its defeat.
So he took advantage of the chaos and became the podesta himself. But if he thought leading Pisa would be a smooth ride, he was in for a rude awakening. His rule was marked by hardship, food shortages, rising prices, unrest among the people. It's almost Shakespearean, this idea that the very ambition that propelled him to the top also sowed the seeds of his destruction.
It's a classic tale of hubris, isn't it? Ugolino's ambition ultimately consumed him.
And to complicate matters further, Ugolino had a powerful enemy in the Archbishop of Pisa.
The Archbishop Ruggieri, a formidable figure in his own right.
Initially, they were allies, but their relationship fractured and it all culminated in a tragedy that would seal Ugolino's fate.
It's a story of alliance, betrayal, and revenge that has echoed through the centuries.
Okay, so let's talk about this archbishop. He was a key player in this whole drama. They started out as allies, but things went south pretty quickly. What happened? Was it just a typical power struggle, or was there something more personal at play?
It was a combination of factors, but a pivotal moment was the death of the archbishop's nephew during a riot. Ugolino was implicated in the killing, and whether it was intentional or accidental, it created a rift between them that couldn't be repaired.
This wasn't just a political rivalry, it became a blood feud. And the archbishop, a man of the cloth, was not someone to forgive and forget, especially when family was involved. His response to this betrayal was swift and brutal.
The archbishop, fueled by grief and a desire for revenge, rallied the disgruntled nobles who were already wary of Ugolino's growing power. Together, they orchestrated a plan to remove him from power once and for all.
And that plan involved the Torre della Muta, the Tower of Hunger. This wasn't just any ordinary imprisonment. Ugolino wasn't thrown in a dungeon to rot. He was condemned to a slow, agonizing death, and not alone.
The archbishop's sentence was deliberately cruel. He ordered Ugolino to be imprisoned in the tower with his sons and grandsons, and then, to add insult to injury, the key to the tower was thrown into the Arno River.
Just tossed it away.
They were left to starve with no hope of escape. It's a chilling image, one that speaks volumes about the depths of the archbishop's anger and the brutality of the times.
Imagine the psychological torment of that situation.
Yeah.
Not only were they facing their own mortality, but they were watching their loved ones, their own flesh and blood, wither away alongside them. It's hard to fathom the despair they must have felt.
The archbishop's choice of punishment was no accident. A public execution could have turned Ugolino into a martyr, a symbol of resistance against the ruling powers. This slow, agonizing death was meant to send a clear message. Defy me, and this is the price you pay.
So we have this backdrop of political maneuvering betrayal and ultimately this incredibly cruel act of revenge, but the story doesn't end there. Ugolino's fate takes an even darker turn, a turn that has fueled centuries of speculation and debate.
Enter Dante Alighieri and his epic poem Inferno. Dante places Ugolino in the ninth circle of hell, frozen in ice, eternally gnawing on the skull of Archbishop Ruggieri. It's a vivid, horrific image that cemented the legend of Ugolino as the cannibal count.
That image is so powerful, so disturbing. It's easy to see how it captured people's imaginations and solidified Ugolino's place in history as this almost monstrous figure. But the big question is, did he really resort to cannibalism in those final desperate days locked in that tower?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's the detail that everyone remembers, the one that makes this story so morbidly fascinating. But the truth is, there's no physical evidence to confirm that Ugolino actually ate his sons and grandsons. In fact, given his advanced age, it's more likely that he would have perished before his younger relatives.
So we have this horrific image from Dante, but not much in the way of historical evidence to back it up.
Yeah.
It's a gruesome thought, but it's also a testament to the power of storytelling, how a single vivid image can overshadow the complexities of a historical figure.
Even without concrete proof, the legend of the cannibal count persists, fueled by Dante's powerful imagery and our own fascination with the macabre. It speaks to the dark side of human nature, the lengths we might go to in the face of unimaginable suffering.
But the story gets even more intriguing. In 2002, an Italian anthropologist claimed to have identified Ugolino's remains and stated that there was no evidence of cannibalism. However, the authenticity of the documents he used was later challenged, leaving us once again with more questions than answers.
This controversy highlights the difficulty of separating fact from fiction when dealing with historical events, especially those shrouded in mystery and horror. It's a reminder that sometimes the most enduring stories are those that leave room for speculation and debate.
Ugolino's story is a reminder that the pursuit of power can corrupt even the most ambitious individuals. It serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the devastating consequences of betrayal. Though the truth of the cannibalism claim remains uncertain, the story's enduring power lies in its exploration of human nature's dark side, the allure of power and the price of ruthless ambition. Ugolino's tale leaves us with a question. Considering the political climate of his time, how much blame can we place on him for his actions? Was he a product of his environment, or was he truly driven by insatiable greed?
It's a question that continues to fascinate and haunt us centuries later.
Join us next time as we delve deeper into the life and times of Ugolino della Gherardesca, the cannibal count of Pisa.
As we delve deeper into Ugolino's story, we find ourselves confronting not just the historical facts, but also the profound psychological dimensions of this tragedy. It's a tale that prompts us to question how ambition, power, and the pressures of circumstance can shape a man's destiny.
It's easy to label Ugolino as a villain, a monster, even based on Dante's depiction and the rumors of cannibalism. But what strikes me is that his story wasn't always one of darkness. He achieved military success, he founded a city, he clearly possessed leadership qualities. So how did he become the figure history remembers him as?
It's a question that historians and psychologists have grappled with for centuries. I think to understand Ugolino, we need to consider the world he inhabited. Remember, this was 13th century Italy, a period of constant conflict and shifting alliances. The Guelph-Ghibelline rivalry was a defining force in Italian politics, and Ugolino was right in the thick of it.
You've mentioned this rivalry a few times now. For those of us who might not be as familiar with Italian history, can you break down what this conflict was all about and why it was so significant?
Imagine a world where your every decision, every alliance could determine not only your own fate, but the fate of your city, your family, your entire lineage. That's the world Ugolino lived in. The Guelphs and Ghibellines were factions loyal to the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor, respectively. They were locked in a power struggle that permeated every aspect of Italian society.
So it was more than just a political disagreement. It was a deep-seated ideological divide that fueled generations of conflict. And Ugolino, navigating this treacherous landscape, chose to play both sides, switching allegiances when it suited him.
Exactly. He was a pragmatist, a survivor, and in a time when survival often meant sacrificing principles, Ugolino became a master manipulator, always looking for an advantage, even if it meant betraying those he was once aligned with.
It's a bit like playing a game of chess, always thinking several moves ahead, sacrificing pawns to protect the king. But in this case, the pawns were real people, real relationships. Even his own grandson, Nino Visconti, wasn't immune to Ugolino's ambition.
That betrayal in particular reveals a ruthlessness that's hard to reconcile with the earlier image of Ugolino as a military leader and city founder. It suggests that perhaps the seeds of his darker nature were always present, just waiting for the right conditions to bloom.
So are we saying he was always destined to become this tyrant, this cannibal count? Or was he a product of his environment, shaped by the constant betrayals and violence he witnessed?
It's probably a bit of both. He was clearly an ambitious man, and ambition unchecked can lead to a dangerous disregard for the well being of others. But the brutal reality of his time, the constant threat of war and treachery, must have taken its toll.
It makes you wonder how anyone could maintain a sense of morality in such a cutthroat environment. It's like the saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely. As Ugolino climbed the ladder, it seems he lost sight of his moral compass, becoming increasingly isolated and paranoid.
Precisely. And that isolation, that paranoia, likely intensified after the death of the Archbishop's nephew. Whether Ugolino was directly responsible for the killing or not, it marked a turning point. It transformed the Archbishop from a wary ally into a vengeful enemy, and that set in motion the events that would lead to Ugolino's downfall.
Let's talk more about the Archbishop. Their alliance, as we've discussed, was one of convenience built on shaky ground. It seemed almost inevitable that it would implode. Was the Archbishop always looking for an excuse to get rid of Ugolino, or was the death of his nephew the true catalyst for his revenge?
It's hard to know for sure what was going on in the Archbishop's mind. He was a man of power himself, operating within the same treacherous political landscape as Ugolino. It's possible he saw Ugolino as a rival, a threat to his own authority, but the death of his nephew undoubtedly fueled his desire for retribution.
It's interesting, though, that he chose such a calculated, drawn-out form of punishment. He could have had Ugolino executed publicly, but instead he opted for this slow, agonizing death in the Tower of Hunger. What message was he trying to send?
The Tower of Hunger becomes a symbol not just of Ugolino's suffering, but also of the Archbishop's ruthlessness. He didn't want a quick death for Ugolino. He wanted him to suffer, to contemplate the consequences of his actions. And by imprisoning him with his sons and grandsons, he added another layer of cruelty to the punishment.
It's hard to imagine a more horrific scenario, locked away with your loved ones, watching them slowly waste away, knowing that your own actions led you to this point. It's a powerful image, one that speaks to the depths of human despair and the cruelty that can be inflicted in the name of justice or revenge.
And then there's the question of cannibalism, the act that has come to define Ugolino in popular imagination, whether or not he actually consumed his family members. The very idea speaks to the primal fears that lurk within us, the dark side of human nature that can emerge in extreme circumstances. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable question, what would we do in such a desperate situation?
That's the genius of Dante's portrayal. He tapped into our collective anxieties about starvation desperation. The lengths we might go to survive, even if the cannibalism was a fabrication. It serves a powerful narrative purpose, amplifying the tragedy and horror of Ugolino's fate.
And it's that enduring image of Ugolino frozen in ice, gnawing on a skull that has shaped our understanding of his story for centuries. It's a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked ambition, the slippery slope from power to ruthlessness to utter despair.
But it's also a story about the human capacity for resilience, even in the face of unimaginable suffering. Think about Ugolino's sons and grandsons imprisoned alongside him. They too were victims of his ambition, yet they faced their fate with a certain stoicism, a loyalty to their family that transcends even the darkest of circumstances.
Their unwavering devotion, even as they face starvation, adds another layer of complexity to this already rich tapestry. It prompts us to consider the bonds of family, the sacrifices we make for those we love, and the enduring strength of the human spirit.
Ugolino's story is one that stays with you, prompting reflection long after you've heard it. It's a reminder that history is not just a collection of facts and dates, but a tapestry woven with human emotions, ambition, betrayal, love, despair. Welcome back to our deep dive into the story of Ugolino della Gherardesca. We've explored the historical context, the psychological complexities, and the ethical dilemmas that his story raises. But now let's shift our focus to how Ugolino's tale has transcended the confines of history to become a source of inspiration and debate for artists, writers, and thinkers across the centuries.
What's fascinating is how Ugolino's story has resonated through different art forms, each interpretation offering a unique lens through which to view this complex figure. From Dante's Inferno to Rodin's sculptures, Ugolino's tale has been reimagined and reinterpreted, reflecting the enduring power of his story to capture our imaginations.
You mentioned Rodin earlier. His sculpture of Ugolino and his sons is incredibly powerful. It's not just a depiction of historical figures, it's a visceral representation of human suffering, of the raw agony and despair of a man facing his own demise alongside his children.
Rodin chose a pivotal moment to capture in his sculpture. He depicts Ugolino crouched over the bodies of his sons, his face contorted in a mix of grief and what some interpret as a primal hunger. It's a moment frozen in time, yet it speaks volumes about the emotional turmoil, the internal conflict raging within Ugolino.
It's interesting how the sculpture, like the story itself, invites multiple interpretations. Some viewers see it as a depiction of Ugolino on the verge of succumbing to cannibalism, driven to the ultimate act of desperation. Others see it as a testament to the enduring bond between father and sons, even in the face of death.
And that ambiguity, that open-endedness, is part of what makes Ugolino's story so compelling. It's not a neat and tidy morality tale with clear-cut heroes and villains. It's a story that forces us to confront the gray areas of human nature, the complexities of ambition, betrayal, and the choices we make in the face of extreme circumstances.
Rodin's sculpture is just one example of how Ugolino's story has inspired artists across generations. There are paintings, operas, even heavy metal songs that draw upon his tragic fate. Each artist brings their own perspective, highlighting different facets of this multi-layered tale.
This enduring fascination speaks to the universality of the themes that Ugolino embodies: his ambition, his ruthlessness, his ultimate downfall. These are archetypes that resonate across cultures and time periods. We see echoes of Ugolino in modern-day figures who succumb to the allure of power, sacrificing their integrity and compassion along the way. It's a story that holds up a mirror to our own society, asking us to examine the seductive nature of power and the potential for corruption that lies within us all.
It also serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of political extremism and the erosion of trust. The Gulf-Ghibeline conflict, with its shifting alliances and betrayals, reminds us of the importance of dialogue, compromise, and finding common ground. It's a lesson that feels especially relevant in today's world, where political polarization and ideological divides seem to be widening.
You're absolutely right. Ugolino's story is a stark reminder of what can happen when ideology trumps empathy, when the pursuit of power becomes an end in itself. It's a reminder that we need to be vigilant about safeguarding the values of compassion, understanding, and a willingness to see the humanity in those who hold different views.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the story of Ugolino della Gherardesca, what key takeaways can we glean from this journey through history, psychology, and art? What lessons can we carry with us as we navigate the complexities of our own lives?
For me, one of the most important lessons is the recognition that history is not just a collection of facts and dates. It's a tapestry woven with human emotions, motivations, and choices. By delving into the story of someone like Ugolino, we gain a deeper understanding of the forces that shape not just individual lives, but the course of history itself.
It also reminds us that even the most seemingly distant historical events can have relevance to our own lives. The themes of ambition, betrayal, and the struggle for power are timeless and universal. By examining how these themes played out in Ugolino's life, we can gain insights into how they might be operating in our own world, in our own relationships, and even within ourselves.
And finally, I think Ugolino's story encourages us to cultivate a sense of curiosity and critical thinking when engaging with the past, to question the narratives we've inherited, to seek out multiple perspectives, and to recognize that history is rarely black and white. It's a messy, complex tapestry, and by embracing that complexity, we enrich our understanding of both the past and the present.
So as you move forward, let Ugolino's story be a catalyst for reflection. Consider the choices you make, the impact they have on others, and the kind of legacy you want to leave behind. And remember, sometimes the most enduring lessons come from the darkest corners of history. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.